the MK Mental Health Hour with 123 Internet Group.
MKFM.
Jonas Blue and Rise on MKFM. Good evening, it's Leah with you for another MK Mental Health Hour. Tonight we're going to be talking all about fitness resolutions, and as always I'm joined in the studio by John from Arthur Ellis. Hello John.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, lovely to see you. And how has the last week been? Any updates from Arthur Ellis?
Yeah, it's kind of taken off quite a bit. We've gone to receiving sort of one referral a day from the community, so that's really, really good. People are reaching out to us. And it's amazing to see. So we've got some partnerships brewing to support whole families. And then also on the training side, we've been getting loads of companies reaching out to begin training their staff or certainly in some cases training their communities. So there's some community organisations who are experiencing mental health issues, not know how to deal with them. So they're reaching out to us to help them do that, which is amazing.
And Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support does exactly what it says on the tin. It supports people with their mental health here in Milton Keynes.
Yeah, so instead of just training to signpost or training to go to the GP, we train in different practical tools, strategies that can be used internally to actually improve the mental health of staff or mental health of the community that organisation's supporting. And all of the training that we do or any work that we do with organisations goes to paying for children to receive free support from our in-house team. Fantastic.
And people can support you, can't they? I know all the details are over on your website if people want to find out more.
Yeah, so we've got a partnership with Ed Sheeran's mum, Imogen. We sell bracelets, so people can go buy some bracelets. And there's a variety of other ways that people can help. So corporates can sponsor children through us, and also we can come in and have a chat with you about our training as well. So there's loads of different ways.
So if people want to find out more details, just remind us of what your website is.
Yeah, it's arthurellismhs.com.
Fantastic. Well, tonight we're going to be talking all about fitness resolutions. It is that time of year. New year, new me. Wanted to kind of get on the fitness track. I suppose by this point, what are we, 3 or so weeks into January?
Yeah.
People might be falling off the bandwagon a little bit.
Starting to dwindle. I think I actually heard on the way into the office in the morning on the breakfast show, I think it was Michael Blades, is it? Michael Blades?
Yep.
He was talking about actually resolutions dropping off, and I think the primary date for that is the 17th. So at this point, there might be a few people who have just completely sacked off what they were planning on doing, just given up. So we wanted to address that. Obviously, that can impact people quite heavily, but also if we're looking to have these things remain consistent, especially fitness, there's quite a lot that we can put in place to make sure that they are they're a little bit more consistent and long term. So that's why we've got the wonderful Simon Williams here.
We do, an expert guest. So we've got Simon Williams, founder of Fit MK and also health and wellbeing coach. Hello Simon.
Hi Leah, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Lovely to have you with us on the show this evening.
Thank you.
So you are founder of Fit MK. That's been going for a little while now, hasn't it?
Yeah, we're entering our 14th or 15th year this year.
Wow.
So yeah,
that's
very
really good going.
Strange to feel that a business that I started up on a Thursday evening all those years ago, and I thought I'll just do it for a little while. I'm now a 43-year-old man still running around in shorts. So I think I've lived one of my life goals.
And that's kind of group fitness training, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. So we run that at Willen Lake, and it's very specific in terms of there's a timetable of sessions, and we do everything from training families, because we encourage parents to bring their children, to doing boxing and circuit classes and boot camps, and it's just about making fitness fun. There's lots of team games and lots of just making people really excited about coming to train with us.
And you must find this time of year is probably the busiest time of year for sign-ups.
Funnily enough, for Fit MK, April is our new year.
Really?
Because that's when we get the light and the warmth.
Right, okay.
Oh, because it's all outdoors.
I think the indoor gyms do quite well this time of year. We do absolutely see an influx of new people coming in, but we don't get this sort of the big splurge that probably the indoor gyms get. Because we're a little bit more kind of, you have to overcome not just the fact you've got to go to the gym, but also you've got to overcome the fact that it is dark, it's wet, it's cold. So we're asking a lot of people to come and train with us in January.
But I suppose we've spoken about this before, that if you can start in January at the worst possible weather time, you're probably more likely to be able to stick it out through summer.
I absolutely think there must be some, I mean, I don't know, this is probably where I come across as strange to people, but sitting on the sofa at 8 o'clock at night, having just run round Woodland Lake where it's been cold, wet and dark sort of thing, I think that's even more satisfying than just being on a treadmill.
Yeah.
Lit gym under a corrugated roof sort of thing.
It's a big achievement, is it? A big achievement if you can get out there.
So not only do you
miserable.
exercise, but you exercise in the extreme hardcore.
Exactly. Well, we're going to be sharing some really great kind of fitness tips and resolutions, and lots of kind of holistic things as well, because you must experience it, Simon, where you need to speak to people. I suppose that's why you're a health and wellbeing coach as well. There's
Absolutely.
Lots of different elements to it as well. So we'll delve into that after Calvin Harris and Rag and Bowman now. This is Giant on MKFM. Still sounding so good, that Calvin Harris and Rag and Bowman, Giant on MKFM. So it is the MK Mental Health Hour. Tonight we're talking about fitness resolutions. We've already heard, John, that a lot of people may have fallen kind of off the bandwagon of their fitness resolutions. On the 17th, did you say?
Yeah. Well, I just heard on the radio that sometimes, roughly the 17th is when everyone begins to drop off or just completely stop doing whatever they set out to do at the beginning of the year.
So why do you think that might be?
Variety of reasons. Maybe started out too strong. So in a previous show around fitness that we did, we said around keeping it consistent and starting out with small goals. Last week we covered off the stress and apathy as well around going back to work. So if someone is pretty much completely apathetic around their goal or don't really invest in it too much, they might recognise that they're just not bothered about it anymore. So what we might then start to see is procrastination slipping in. So priorities will shift if it's not that important to you.
I'll go and do this rather than going to the gym.
Exactly,
that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I'm going to go home from work and I'll just have 5 minutes, take my shoes off, have a sit down. Maybe then I'll make a cup of tea, and then all of a sudden it's 7:30, 8 o'clock.
I haven't got time to go to the gym tonight. I'll do it tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. And then so we might start noticing these, or you're just filling your time with other things that don't really make too much of a difference, or make a difference to your New Year's resolution, but they're still important. So it might be that your resolution isn't fitting in with your lifestyle very well, and you need to make a bit of an adjustment so that you're not having that guilt. Because, Simon, we spoke about guilt a little bit and how to, if you're, so for example, if you're meant to have a gym session or go for a run or a cycle in an evening, maybe then you start actually waking up and feeling guilty and beating yourself up about not doing it.
And that's really important, because the thing is, the moment you start feeling guilty about not doing something, you're actually sort of like burdening yourself. And it becomes... that actually becomes like treacle trying to wade through. Probably a wrong choice of words using treacle, but for the New Year's resolutions. But it is also, I think you really need to take stock and understand, probably I was sort of saying earlier about what have you been doing the last month? The last month you were in December, so it was Christmas. So chances are you were staying up later than you would probably normally stay up. You were probably drinking more booze than you would normally drink. You're probably eating more food than you would normally eat, and it probably be more sugary and fatty food. So you've kind of set the bar quite high and banged the scales down quite high on that sort of lifestyle. Now you've woken up and it's the 2nd of January, because let's face it, the 1st of January is always recovery day.
It's a write-off day, that one.
You've got to write off. So it's the 2nd of January and you're like, right, now I'm going to drink water, I'm only going to eat boiled chicken breasts and raw broccoli, and I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a day. You might have just banged the scale a little bit too hard down the other way.
By taking on way too much too soon.
Exactly. And I know I've kind of said this, sort of like over-exaggeration there, but it is true. Sometimes saying going to the gym 3 times a week is too much for you. And because you've set it as that bar, and now you're not doing what you said you were going to do, not only are you not getting fitter, but you're also feeling guilty about it as well. Whereas if you can recognise that, okay, maybe I've set the bar too high, could I go to the gym once a week? Well, absolutely, I can definitely do that. And then once you've been doing that for a month or 2 months, you feel really good about yourself that you did what you said you were going to do. And now it's easy. You know what? I could actually go 2 times a week. And it's easy to build on that. So I think it's really important that if you are having any feelings of guilt or shame with your New Year's resolutions, just actually taking stock where you were, where you are now, what you're actually doing, and seeing if there's some tweaks or changes that can be made whereby you actually feel quite good about your goals and your resolutions.
And we said last week in terms of apathy, so if people are not too bothered about doing it or anything like that, then or anything, maybe they're just completely unmotivated. setting those tiny little goals. And one way that you said about sort of people getting a bit of oomph behind them is thinking about yourself in 12 hours time, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was it's something I say quite frequently. I do it to myself as well. I mean, even it can be something so... I mean, I know we spoke about if you came home and you sort of sit down and have a cup of tea before going to the gym because you just need this little rest, and then you're sort of like, it's too late now, I won't bother. And then, I also think about in the morning. I mean, I'm a massive... One of the first goals when I'm ever working with anyone on an individual basis, or even a group basis, it's the day starts the moment the alarm clock, most of us wake up to an alarm clock, sets off. If you are pressing the snooze button, you are already delaying the day. You are already setting up the day to be a bit slower, a bit more lethargic. If you just straight away in your head go, I want the day to be incredible, and that starts off with, as soon as the alarm goes off, I get up, I twist my legs, I put my feet on the floor, I walk into the bathroom, I splash cold water on my face, and that starts the momentum of the day being good. If you kind of then wake up, the alarm goes off, you think, I'm going to hit the snooze button. But then that means that in a little while I'm going to be rushing to get to work. That means I'm going to be stressed when I'm sat in the car. If you start just thinking, it doesn't need to be 12 hours, it can just literally be an hour from now, half an hour from now, what state you're going to present yourself in with the actions that you do right now, that can be a massive motivator to actually just hitting the alarm off or not pressing the snooze button and getting going. And it's powerful if you can just kind of think, before I make the decision of action, can I just think about where I'm going to be in an hour, 12 hours, 24 hours from now, and how I'm going to feel from this action. And the chances are, if you're going to be feeling guilt, that can be a real good motivator to actually take a positive
good
action.
Starting point.
Absolutely. Well, some really great advice there from Simon, and we're going to continue the conversation after DJ Khaled and Justin Bieber. No Brainer plays for you next.
The MK Mental Health Hour with 123 Internet Group.
DJ Khaled, Justin Bieber, No Brainer on MKFM. Good evening. It is the MK Mental Health Hour with Leah, joined in the studio as always by John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support, and Simon, who is the founder of Fit MK and is also a health and well-being coach. So we've spoken about people maybe falling off the bandwagon a little bit with their fitness resolutions, and we've spoken about that guilty feeling that I think a lot of us have. Maybe, I don't know, you've overeaten throughout the weekend, or maybe you've had too much booze or whatever, and you're like, oh, why have I done that, and it's Monday tomorrow and I want to be able to kind of get back on it. But it is actually really important to identify those setbacks, and then you can kind of plan your move forward.
Yeah, so if we are starting to feel a little bit guilty about it, we might be internalising that as sort of telling ourselves that we're failing, seeing it as failures for not reaching a goal that we set ourselves, when, as we said in the last section, that it might have been a bit of an unrealistic goal in the first place. So we'll begin to beat ourselves up, and over time, if we're just completely not reaching these goals, that can have a massive impact in our mood. And then, as we know, it just becomes harder and harder to start getting back on top of things. So to try and address those straight away is really, really important. So Simon, you said about looking at identifying when there's like a bit of an inner voice going on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we all have that voice in our head that talks to us. Yeah. And sometimes he or she is great and can really spur us on and motivate us forward, but then there's also times when it becomes a bit of an anchor and holds us in place. And I think it's really important that you recognize if the voice is going into you, you are failing, you are doing a terrible job, that you really sort of like get some red flags, highlight that, and now, okay, I'm internalizing in myself that I'm failing. Let's look at the evidence. Let's look at the numbers on the scale. Let's look in the mirror. How does that reflecting on towards the goal that I'm trying to achieve? Then if that sort of backs it up, that you're not on track, okay, well, let's look at the actions that I'm taking. What food am I eating? What movement am I doing?
Have I been procrastinating and all those other things?
Yeah.
What's been getting in the way?
Just be really honest with yourself, and it's okay to sort of like not do everything that you set out to do, but if you're allowing failure to sort of like be the majority, then that's where it's going to end up being a downhill space. But I think it's just really important that sometimes the voice can be quite quiet, or the signs or the warning signs can be quite quiet. I mean, you even said earlier about the fact that, you know, you kind of come in and I fancy a cup of tea before I go on to the gym, so I'll sit down. That's your internal voice saying, I want to go back to my comfort zone. I want to sit on the warm sofa. I want a hot drink. I want to watch EastEnders. And that's the voice that's taken you to where you currently are, that you want to move away from. So just hear that voice saying that you want to stay in your comfort zone, and then have the conversation with yourself externally. Do I want to listen to that voice, or do I want to actually focus on the goals that I set myself?
And then how will I feel in the hour or in the morning?
Exactly.
And all of that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
And really start to address it that way.
But it's so important that any journey, it doesn't matter whether it's fitness or business, there are peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
There are failures and successes. No one ever says, I'm going to be an Olympic athlete, and day one, every day, is personal bests and gold medals and tournament wins and stuff like that. There's times where there's injuries, there's times where it all goes kind of wrong, and you can apply it to people's fitness, you can apply it to people's businesses. It's a whole, and recognize that what you've decided with your resolution or your goal is a journey, and things are going to go wrong, and that's okay. It's identifying it and then making sure that you put the right steps into place to either hold where you are before you move forward, or maybe even taking some steps back before you can take some steps forward. But don't just allow the procrastination, which is a great word that you use, to just stay where you are and further take you back down the route of whereby you actually end up not only just saying that you're a failure, but believing you're a failure.
Yeah, and that's, from my point of view, certainly, that's all too easy to start creeping in.
Oh, yeah.
And believing it as well. Like, if you're telling yourself it, you will begin over time to believe it. So it's so important to recognise it and just stomp it out.
Definitely.
And just put things in place so that you don't have it in the first place.
So really important to be honest with yourself, but to also have a clear vision and goal kind of in mind, and to track that kind of realistically throughout the journey. Fantastic. Well, we're going to continue our conversation after we hear from the original now. I Love You Baby on MKFM. Sounding good for your Sunday evening, the original, and I Love You Baby on the MK Mental Health Hour, talking all about fitness resolutions this evening with Simon from FitMK and John from Arthur Ellis Mental Health Support. So we've said about that kind of guilty feeling that some people might have when you kind of fall off the bandwagon a little bit. And we've said about it's really important about taking stock and putting things in place. One of those things to put in place is really important to have kind of a vision and goals, isn't it, John?
Yeah. So if we're setting any goal, it's good to be able to visualize it and see it accomplished. But if we're getting to a point where maybe we're recognizing that we are procrastinating a little bit, other things are kind of taking over as priority from whatever we set as a resolution, whether that is keeping fit, whether it's losing weight, then it's really important to see if our vision is actually strong enough to be able to motivate us to do this, especially if we're beginning to feel a little bit apathetic with it, and we might recognise that we're feeling guilty, or even telling ourselves that we're failing in this kind of goal setting or this resolution that we had. So one way in which we can do that, and Simon, you said that one of the main things that's so important to have is a strong vision in place. Absolutely.
And I think we've got to be really careful with how we set things up, but ultimately there is. So let's just stay with the losing weight and getting fitter theme always, because that's what the show is about. But if you've got a vision of, right, okay, I want to lose weight. Okay, that's good that we've got something in terms of like some traction, but there's not enough there to really sort of like hook you in.
It's quite vague.
To that goal. That's a bit too vague. So what is it that's made you come up with it? Why have you said that? Have you seen a photo or a video of yourself and just kind of thought, the double chin is there, I'm not happy about that? Okay, so straight away now we're starting to get some emotions attached to why you've made that goal. And then we now need to start to trigger some positive emotions towards that goal. So how will you look when you lose weight? Will you have a number on a scale looking back at you? Is there a dress or a pair of trousers that when you put on,
so
you're just going to feel amazing when you put them on? Sorry.
It doesn't necessarily need to be, I will weigh X amount. It could be, I want to get in the size down, or something like that.
an automatic way that people go to.
It's a good measure.
It's a measuring
Yeah,
device,
yeah.
of course, absolutely. But I always go in. I mean, I'm an emotional person. I like thinking. How am I going to feel when I cross the finish line? Am I going to be like, yeah, done it, or will I be like dancing like flipping Joey Tribbiani from Friends? I have no idea why I got that vision coming to my head. But in terms of just going out of my skin, I can't believe I'm so ecstatic that I've done it. I want to plug into how I think, how I feel, how I speak, how I behave. And when I start getting really excited about seeing me as being energetic, being enthusiastic, being maybe in even disbelief that I've achieved something or something like that, then I start getting really excited about the goal. Then we started talking about a little bit earlier about the belief of that sort of thing, because the goal now is being set, but chances are it's quite far away. It's quite a long distance goal.
Well, we were saying that typically when people set resolutions, or if it's a vague resolution of I'm going to lose weight, then it's very vague, and it's probably your goal for the year.
Yeah.
And 12 months is a very long time, isn't it?
Totally.
So would you say sort of breaking it down so that you can see each step of the way?
Absolutely. You've got to get to the point whereby, I mean, I'll give you guys a real quick, I'll try and make it a quick analogy. But in terms of like, if you remember when I first came in, I told you about I went to Everest. Now, when I was 14 years old, I read a book about George Mallory, and I set myself a goal at 14 years old that I would summit Mount Everest.
Wow. So that's
Now,
a real long-term goal then.
Yeah, well, when I was
You don't know.
39, I realised I was nowhere near that summit. Now, I have not summited Mount Everest, but I've got as close to it as I possibly can, because what I did is I sat down and had a chat with myself and said, I can't come up with the £80,000 it's going to cost to pay to climb Mount Everest. I haven't got enough experience in mountaineering to do it. So what is it that I can do? Well, I've never been to Nepal or Kathmandu. Not many people do that. Well, that's an easy thing to do. You book a flight, you go out there. There's probably some sort of like companies out there that will take you trekking in the Himalayas, which I basically booked. And I found like the safest summit that I could go to was a summit called Kala Patthar, which is basically about 2,500 meters below the summit of Everest, but you get to see the summit of Everest and the sunrise over Everest. Now, suddenly, this goal was kind of set. It wasn't the ultimate goal, but it was a goal that I believed and knew that I could do. It was only going to cost £5,000 or something like that with everything, and it was in the timescales. It worked. My wife was happy as well that I wasn't going to die, and all these kind of things. It just made it really doable. So
that belief part is so important, isn't it? You have to believe that you're going to be able to do that.
And totally, and it was one of those journeys that it was cold, it was horrible, it was difficult, and there was so many times where I thought, why aren't I just at home in Milton Keynes, running around the lake where it's so much simpler? But when I actually got to the summit of Kala Patthar and I saw the sunrise come over Mount Everest, oh man, I cried like a baby because it was just the most amazing experience kind of thing. And I think this is where it kind of goes in terms of like, look at your goals, make them according to what is actually that you can do and you believe that you can do, and recognize that you don't have to summit Mount Everest. Sometimes just going to see it is a pretty awesome goal just in its own right. And if you can apply that to your weight loss and your fitness goals, I kind of gone right off track there with talking about mountains, but this is where I kind of like to go with people. I want you to think about the goal and then just break it down to what it is that you can actually do.
So a lifelong goal you were set to really not achieve to begin with, but once you were able to break it down into something that's more achievable, you could visualize it, you would believe it as well, because it's not as much of a big, scary, hairy goal. And you're able to actually do it. Good
absolutely.
On you. Well done.
And I think, thank you very much. But I think it is. I think that's just so important. Sometimes I think if there's not enough excitement about the goal, you've got no chance of hitting it. If you just kind of like, I'm going to give this a go. Good luck.
And if you believe it, and you can see it in your mind.
Yeah, I can do this. I like getting people really energized and focused and almost chanting like a mantra. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
And actually, you're brilliant at that. And that is actually something we're going to be talking about a bit more, is that support system and having, somebody like you, Simon, kind of championing you the whole way. So your support system, very, very important. More on that after Harry Styles next.
The MK Mental Health Hour with 123 Internet Group.
Absolutely love that one from Harry Styles, Adore You on MKFM. So it is the MK Mental Health Hour. Simon, we've been talking about the importance of having kind of clear vision and clear goals and a clear belief that you can do that. Also, a really important factor is to make sure that you've got the support around you to be able to kind of facilitate that. You mentioned quite a powerful statistic actually about the kind of balancing out of the can'ts and the cans.
Absolutely,
talk us through
yeah.
that quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something that I found out a little while ago in terms of like, if you hear a can't do something, that will sit on you, and it's going to take 17 cans before you can actually bring that back out to balance again.
Wow.
Which is so, I mean, when you look at it in that context, it's so much. So I think it's really important that you understand that, you know, you have to sort of work against something like this and build a support system about you. If you hear a can't, you may have to do some of it yourself. And, you know, John and I were just kind of discussing about the fact that the support system around you, friends, family, is critical in you being able to make sure that you're on track. And there's no harm in actually turning around to your friends and family and saying something like, guys, I'm going for this goal, I'm struggling a little bit, what I could really do with you from you is just saying, you can do this, Simon, you know, and that's going to be so powerful for me and just help me taking my goals.
And we're kind of looking at fitness and losing weight, but it can be related to anything. So if someone is looking at supporting someone with depression or any other mental health issue, then it could just be that your support system, you ask them to give you a little bit of a rally now and then. Just tell them that you're doing something good. Tell them that you are accomplishing something. It's to make sure that we can up those cans and down those can'ts.
Fantastic. And really important to be honest with yourself and obviously very honest about everybody around you so you can have that support system. Well, as always, some really helpful tips on the show this evening. We're going to do a very quick roundup after Jess Glynn and Jax Jones now. Jess Glynn and Jax Jones. That is One Touch on MKFM. So the MK Mental Health Hour tonight has been all about fitness resolutions and some really fantastic advice and tips. In a very quick summary, John, what have we found out this evening?
Yeah, so maybe we have recognised from this evening that we're starting to procrastinate a little bit. Maybe we're starting to shift our priorities away from the goals that we originally set ourselves at the beginning of the year. As a result of that, we might be starting to feel guilt. It might be actually working against us, making us feel a bit apathetic, maybe building up in our minds that we're failures. So taking a real stock of that and having a look at what bits are we struggling with, having a real clear vision and breaking down this specific goal to being not a massive year-long goal, but little sections, and then banding together our support network with our clear vision, with our vision and a goal that we actually really believe that we can achieve, getting our support network in place to gee us on, give us a little bit of a encouragement now and then to give us that little boost that we need to make sure that we keep it consistent. And
we do have an expert guide which is going to be released over on your website tomorrow morning. Just remind us of your website, John.
Yeah, we've got a fitness guide and physical activity guide, especially if people are managing a mental health condition. So that is on arthurellismhs.com.
Fantastic. And Simon, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If people want to find out more details about what you do at FitMK and want to get a bit of advice on the kind of the health and well-being side, how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say the best thing to do is really visit fitmk.com. I'm actually about to release a new program called Slow Burn, and I'm looking for some people to actually give a bit of a trial run to it, and it's all about making it slow and methodical but making long-lasting results. So if you contact us via fitmk.com, just say MKFM, I know exactly what you're contacting us about, and I'll be in contact back with you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for this evening. As always, some really, really helpful tips, and make sure you join us for another MK Mental Health Hour next Sunday from 7.
The MK Mental Health Hour with 123 Internet Group.
MKFM.